Are you looking for compact, fast, and wide zooms? Is the Canon RF 10 to 20 millimeter a bit too big at 112 by 83 millimeters and a bit too heavy at 1.3 pounds? Canon thinks so. In Canon's patent application, JP 2024-042622, filed on September the 15th, 2022, and recently published on March the 28th, 2024, Canon claims to solve the problem, to provide a super wide angle zoom lens, which is small in size and can obtain a high optical performance over the entire optical range. And if you've been following this channel for a while, you'll recall that I've covered several other Canon patent applications that talk about reducing the size and weight of super telephoto lenses, like the Canon RF 200 to 800 mm f6.3 to 9, or the Canon RF 100 to 500 mm f4.5 to 7.1, which feel surprisingly light in your hand, allowing you to get shots like this, handheld, without any monopod or tripod, without any jitters or jerky movements. Canon patent application JP 2024-040756 sets out to make the lens barrel smaller, taking a holistic approach to reduce the size and weight with fewer components, reducing the overlap of the lens group, and of course using fewer materials. Then there's patent application JP 2024-032819. It sets out to reduce the weight of super telephoto lenses by using carbon fiber composites. And as you can see by the background behind me, I already own the Canon RF 100 to 500 mm, as well as the Canon RF 200 to 800 mm. And when I first got each of these lenses, I was actually surprised by how lightweight they were. They weren't at all heavy. And I previously owned the Canon EF 100 to 400 mm, which comes in weighing at 3.61 pounds or 1.6 kilograms. I can already see the benefits of Canon's weight loss program. The weight of the 100 to 500 mm, which gives us an extra 100 millimeters, comes in at just a paltry 3 pounds or 1.36 kilograms. But other lenses like the Canon RF 10 to 20 millimeters, is it too heavy at 1.3 pounds? And is it too big at around 80 by 112 millimeters? Going back to today's patent application, it doesn't reference any lenses, any focal lengths, or even any lens embodiments. So it might seem like this video is a total waste of coverage, and that this patent serves only one purpose: to protect all the time and effort, the resources that Canon's put into, well, researching and developing, reducing the light and weight of smaller lenses. At least that's what it would seem like on the surface. But consider the Canon RF 50mm f1.2, a prime lens at 2.8 pounds, just 200 grams less in terms of weight than the Canon RF 100 to 500 millimeters. So don't you think that the Canon RF 50mm f1.2, or maybe even the 85mm, could benefit from going on Canon's weight loss program? And what about the Canon RF 35mm f1.2, or is it an f1.4? According to Canon rumors, that lens is going to be announced this year, most likely in the first half. Fast and wide lenses are much heavier due to the optics based on today's technology, and this is where this patent application could definitely pay off. The big question to ask here is not what is Canon doing, but why are they doing it? If you think from their viewpoint, if you can reduce the weight and the size of these lenses, well, that reduces shipping costs. Not only that, but it reduces the cost of the components that are put into a lens. It reduces the amount of components, reduces the amount of materials, and that again reduces cost. Now, in some cases, this might only be pennies or even a few dollars. But when you're shipping hundreds of thousands or millions of units, those add up to a lot of real money over the long term. This is something that Apple knows very well, having significantly reduced the size of the retail boxes to an art. Okay, great. So we can understand why Canon's doing this, but does it benefit you as a photographer or a videographer? While I would like to see the Canon RF 28 to 70 lose a few pounds or at least drop some weight in the Mark II, it really doesn't impact me a whole lot. I've been shooting with the Canon R5 and the RF 50mm f1.2, and at 2.8 pounds, I gotta say that it doesn't feel too heavy to me. And I shoot for hours on end. I do a lot of run and gun with it. And I'm more impressed with the results I get from the lens that, the weight of it, it just really doesn't get in the way. But there are certain scenarios where having reduced weight or even size can have a major payoff. And that's when it comes to flying. Especially, and I'm not talking about wide bodies where you've got plenty of room, but I'm talking about some of those, well, more remote adventures where your weight limits and your size limits are a little bit more restrictive. Take the Canon RF 100 to 500 millimeter as an example. It collapses to where I can put it in a very simple carry-on that fits the restrictions that Air Canada sets for going under my seat. However, on much smaller airlines and airplanes that take you into remote places like Harbour Air, reducing the size and weight can certainly be a benefit. On a standard fare at Harbour Air, the maximum weight restriction is just 8 pounds. So having a lens like the 100 to 500 millimeter that can collapse down really pays off when you're flying, especially if you're flying on smaller regional airlines. And at a weight of around 3 pounds, you don't even come anywhere close to that 8-pound limit, allowing you to pack on maybe another lens like a much more portly RF 50mm f1.2, or maybe even the Canon 200 to 800 millimeter. And that's one of the big benefits of the weight reduction. If you do a lot of travel, especially if you're going into far and remote places, where you're not just taking your favorite lens or your favorite camera, you're taking a backup camera, a backup lens, many other accessories. And of course, there's all that other gear you need to survive where you're going in the remote. There's your cellular, there's your communications, and a list I could keep going on, your camping gear. So every pound, every bit of weight matters. But for the rest of us that are doing run and gun, that are driving to a location, well, maybe the weight reduction and size isn't that big of a deal, but whether you like it or not, it's coming to lenses, whether they're primes, zooms, telephotos, or super telephotos. But unlike that slider on the Canon EOS R, it's not something they're going to stop back up and decide not to do any further. And Canon has shown, starting with the RF 70 to 200 millimeter, that this reduction in weight and size is certainly a priority. And most likely with a Canon RF 28 to 70 Mark II, which there are some rumors that this one's coming out, not only could it have a Z designation, but they could also reduce the weight and size of all the Canon lenses out there that fit this patent application. It's certainly one that fits the bill. And then of course, there's the Canon RF 35mm f1.2 or f1.4. This has been a lens that we've been teased about for, well, years, going back to 2018 and 2019. I wouldn't be surprised if Canon reduces the weight of this lens to where it weighs a little bit less than the Canon RF 50mm f1.2. But don't expect that weight savings to, well, pay off in the pocketbook. I don't expect Canon to reduce the price of that lens much less than the Canon RF 50mm f1.2. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it costs a little more. How do you feel about Canon's goal to reduce the size and weight of their lenses, super telephotos, primes, and otherwise? How does this affect you and what you shoot, whether it's photography or videography? One thing I would like you to do is tell us, spill your beans, give us your true thoughts on this in the comment section down below, but please do me a favor. To help other viewers understand your viewpoint, tell us what kind of stuff you shoot and why it's a big deal or why it's not, why it's annoying and why it's not, and which lenses you would like to see Canon reduce the size and weight of. And there is one thing I would like to talk a little bit about, because if you're working in very windy, or I should say dusty areas, the one problem with these external zooms is it's very possible to get dust landing on the lens barrel here, that when you keep moving it in and out, you're going to transfer some of that dust to the inside of the camera or the lens. And, well, the last thing we want is when we're in one of those far off remote locations, like a location I would take with Harbour Air, is to have my once in a lifetime video shots ruined because of dust. So I do get that. Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to stay up to date on all the latest Canon patent filings or all the latest news and rumors or camera industry forecasting and sales, then go ahead and subscribe and choose all notifications. I don't just cover Canon, I cover all the major camera brands and all the major camera news. As you can see from yesterday's video on a big firmware update for 4 Sony cameras, the Alpha 1, the A7S III, the A7 IV, and the A9 Mark III. And despite many comments, an awful lot of comments with people being very unhappy with the level of enhancements in these updates, I see it as a glass half full, because this is the first time in a long time that Sony has provided us with firmware updates. And that's a big deal. I do hope that this isn't the last. We don't have to wait several years before other updates. I hope that Sony is truly listening to us and does provide many more enhancements over the next couple of months. Fingers crossed on that one. And if you're looking at purchasing any camera gear, lenses, or accessories, one thing I noticed today when I was looking at some of the lenses, checking the weight, is the Canon RF 100 to 500 millimeter. This guy right here is still on sale, or back on sale, for $300 off. Since November of last year, from Black Friday, this thing has almost always been on sale. I gotta say, this is one of my favorite lenses outside of the 50 millimeter. To be able to shoot handheld with this thing. Watch all the reviews on YouTube and even some of the articles, and they're going to talk about optically how good it is for shooting birds and other wildlife, but they don't really focus on the stabilization of this camera, or sorry, the stabilization of the lens in conjunction with the camera. I was on Lake Ontario a few years back, and I was shooting wildlife, I was shooting people, and even with the boat rocking, and yes, these weren't 3-meter waves or anything like that, but still, if you've ever been on a boat, you know how hard it is to stabilize yourself while the boat's rocking. And just look at how stable these shots are. It's absolutely incredible. Now with stills, you can adjust the shutter speed. You've got IBIS to produce images without any blur. But video, you're going to notice that because you're shooting, in this case, at 30 frames per second. So it's really impressive. I'm really impressed with this lens. So at $300 off, if you're interested in purchasing this or any other accessories, then please consider using my affiliate links in the description down below. These guys right here. I get anywhere from 2 to 12% back, which really goes back into supporting this channel, and I thank you so much for it. I'm going to be flying out to Vancouver this year, and I'm actually going to be using Harbour Air, and no, they're not paying for this spot. They're one of those regional airlines that will get you into really tight spots, into really remote places, and I'm going to be planning on capturing a whole lot more B-roll. I'm not sure if I'm going to take the 200 to 800 with me. I think I'm just going to take the 100 to 500, the 24 to 105, and maybe the 50 millimeter f1.2, because I'm sure that while I'm out there, I'll have videos that I'll need to record, and I'm often doing those in the early morning when lighting isn't the best. Anyhow, have yourself a great weekend. Happy Easter to you. Have yourself a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. And don't forget to show up on Monday morning. I've got a video coming out that I think I don't think you're going to want to miss. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Have yourself a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon.